Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pam Popper Show. This is brought to you by Wellness Form Health, the Wellness Form Institute, and Make Americans Free Again. I have a special guest on the show who I'll introduce in just a couple of minutes. But first, I have a couple of announcements that you're going to want to know about. Black Friday sales have started and will continue only until December 2nd, 2025. And there are four great options. I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm just going to give you a super short outline of what these specials are. So the first one is opportunities to extend your membership and save up to $1,500 on dues. The second one is an opportunity to save up to $3,500 on educational course packages. So that would be like our cancer summit, our autoimmune summit, adult vaccines, and courses we're going to offer next year. So I won't list them all. We have dozens and dozens, as you know, and we can customize a package for you. Third one is an opportunity to save up to $4,000 on tuition for health professionals training. And the fourth one is, for the last time, one free green tea if you buy 2 months of all of the smoothie ingredients. So my email address is pampopper@msn.com. Send me an email. I'll send you details. We can set up a time to talk to you, figure out what's best for you. December 2nd is the hard deadline, so don't miss it. All right. Second thing, don't forget my book is out. Heidi's on my book is out. And if you haven't ordered it yet, people are telling us they love it. I love hearing that. I know Heidi loves hearing that too. So if you haven't already downloaded it to your Kindle or bought the book, you can order from our office an autographed copy. You can buy it on Amazon and in select bookstores. And if you'd still like to watch the book launch party, it took place a couple weeks ago, but we're happy to send you the link if you'd like to watch us talk about it. All right. Now I want to introduce my special guest, the interview with physician assistant Dan Moyer. He's a graduate of our Certified Health Educator program, and he is exactly the type of health professional we all want for ourselves. So I think you're going to find his journey from conventional training and practice to informed health super inspiring. So I'm going to let you watch me and Dan have a great conversation about all kinds of things related to health. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pam Popper Show. I have a very special guest who I've wanted to interview for a long time and finally managed to get him away from his busy schedule and family and everything else and take a little bit of time to interview.
Yep.
So one of the things I love about you, Dan, is that you practice what you preach. And we
Thank
don't
you.
see enough of that in healthcare. So happy to have you on the show and to introduce you to all the Wellness Forum audience out there and others too. So let's talk about health. And after you and I made contact with each other, you enrolled in our Certified Health Educator program and just graduated. You're starting a new practice. So this is super good timing
Mhm.
for everybody to find out about it. But let's start at the beginning. How did you get interested in being in the healthcare business in the first place?
Sure, sure. Well, thank you so much, Pam. Thank you for the time today. Thank you for the interview. It's a true honor to be speaking with you and to have been under your leadership and instruction for a full year. It was a really fantastic experience. So, thank
Great.
you again. I got into medicine back when I was around 18 or 19. I started as a EMT. I was an EMT basic, and then in college, I was very interested in biology. So I decided to major in biology. And then as I looked forward to what to do with a biology degree, I wanted to apply that science, that learning to helping people. And so that led me to looking into all the different medical careers that you can do. And I was drawn towards physician assistant. And it's usually about a 2 to 3 year program, master's level program. And you're generally educated as a primary care provider. So it's almost basically a mini medical school. And so I went through that program and graduated in 2013 and have been a physician assistant since then and have been in various different fields. I started in the military. I was a Navy physician assistant and working in San Diego, working at Marine Corps boot camp. And that gave me a good introduction to a lot of urgent care, primary care type medical complaints and concerns. And then I transitioned into a bunch of different fields. One of the benefits of being a physician assistant is the flexibility in the career of being able to move between different areas and different fields. And so after doing primary care, urgent care in the military, I actually went on the reserve side and was part of a shock trauma platoon. I also worked for an orthopedic surgeon, worked for a dermatology online practice. And I also worked for the government with the Department of Homeland Security as a contractor. And then also worked in an urgent care, civilian urgent care. And so I have all these different varied experiences in medicine, which eventually led me to Wellness Forum.
Yeah, that is a broad range of experiences, and that really prepares you uniquely to deal with people because you've seen almost every medical situation in which a person could find himself or herself, ranging from the checkup to the emergency intervention side of it. And
Hmm.
very few people have that range of experience. So when did you start to notice that medicine maybe was going down a path that wasn't very good? How long ago?
Very good question. So, I started to know, well, most acutely, obviously, when the world ended back in 2019, 2020. That was when I had my real wake up
Mhm.
to the medical system. Probably actually all the way back at the very beginning. One of the things I noticed about in medicine that we actually didn't learn much about in school is that you actually end up being a data entry clerk. And that's because in the traditional healthcare system, the documentation is basically what you're judged on, but also an incredibly important but time-consuming part of the job. And so I never expected getting into medicine that I would be spending more than 50% of my day typing at a computer. And so that's why I like to joke around and say anyone getting in medicine today in the traditional system where you're, working for a healthcare system, or you're, working for the government, or you're working, working and having to bill insurance companies and Medicare and whatnot, you are going to be a data entry clerk. That is what you're going to be doing, sitting behind a computer, entering information. And obviously, documentation is a good thing, but the amount of time medical providers spend documenting is enormous. So that's kind of my first kind of shock of medicine, of how I just didn't expect that. Continuing in some of my jobs, I was surprised people didn't generally always get better. So I thought, you study these different treatments and people are supposed to get better, and then they don't always get better. And so, like, you think, what else can I do for these people? Now, I'm trained as a traditional medical provider, which is drugs or surgery. So the way we approach, obviously, there is a little bit of education on diet and lifestyle and things like that, but it's usually glossed over. And the real heavy focus in medical education is drugs, and primarily drugs, and also surgery if the problem's
Mhm.
not amenable to drugs. And so, um, surprising and whatnot. So by 2019, 2020, I'd been in medicine for about 7 years and kind of had these thoughts about the documentation, lots of documentation, and also about just how I really only have these two modalities, drugs or surgery. And then we get into COVID madness. And that's when things really started to change for me. Now, I was working in an urgent care, and basically everyone we saw was a COVID patient, and so, or influenza-like illness. I mean, it's these illnesses, as you know. I mean, there's 200 viruses that cause the common cold, and the symptoms all overlap and whatnot. And so, COVID symptoms obviously overlap with a lot of influenza-like illness symptoms. But basically, seeing hundreds, thousands of COVID patients, and then we started going down the COVID vaccination route, and everyone's got to get the COVID vaccine. And we were told this will prevent transmission of COVID. And I started looking into it and questioning the COVID vaccine, and I decided not to get the COVID vaccine. I had some ethical concerns about how the COVID vaccine was developed and produced. And then I was also looking at myself personally, and also those around me, realizing, for the vast, vast, vast majority of people, this is not a dangerous illness.
Mhm.
And this is an illness that we're all going to get. It's very communicable, and we're all going to get it. I think there are some significant risks of the vaccine. So why would I get this? Why would I get this vaccine? And so I decided not to. And this obviously, unfortunately, ended my employment. And so then I'm kind of up a creek. What do I do? Because the COVID vaccine was required by my employers, and I had to do some digging to find the few loopholes that would allow me to keep working as a physician assistant. And I was able to find one loophole that allowed me to keep working in a particular area of medicine, and I was able to keep doing that. Um, and so then I just started questioning everything. I really started looking into vaccines. I was trained in PA school, basically to follow the CDC schedule. There's the risks are 1 in a million and they're safe and effective. And, you just got to follow the CDC schedule. So the COVID vaccine and COVID madness happened. And then I started looking more into vaccines, and I read Dr. Paul Thomas's book, The Vaccine Friendly Plan. I read the vaccine book by Dr. Sears. I read Dissolving Illusions by Dr. Suzanne Humphries. These were all medical doctors who wrote books critical of vaccines. There's also Miller's Critical Review of Vaccines, which is like 400 or 500 studies that are critical of vaccines. And so that was sort of the real stepping off where I was like, I have to get out of this system. I need to find a different way to help people outside of the traditional system, outside of a system where they're going to forcibly or try to forcibly inject me with experimental, dangerous medications, in my opinion. And I need to find a way to help people that is outside the system.
That was quite a journey. And a couple questions just to back up. How much time, when you were before the world came to an end with COVID, and you were doing what would be considered normal care, how much time would you have with a patient to talk about diet or lifestyle or anything like that?
So great question. And the answer to that is very minimal. So a lot of my experiences in medicine is um, you are rushed to see as many people as possible. When you're working for someone else, they care about how many people you see. The people who are running businesses, and especially the big government and health system practices, they want you to get in and out as quick as you can. And I understand that from a business perspective. At the same time, what's best for patients? And
Right.
so you really can't have these conversations in 2, 3, 5 minutes. You really got to have a little bit of a more in-depth conversation to talk to people about their diet and lifestyle and other issues that are affecting their conditions. And so, very minimal. And so that's one of the things that I can bring to working with clients is I know behind the scenes, I know how medical providers in a traditional medical setting are being evaluated. They're being evaluated on customer satisfaction surveys, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but I worked in one place, for example, where you were sent a weekly email where you were rated against everyone else in the practice, how you rated in your customer satisfaction scores. It was a huge way people are rated. You're also rated on how fast you see people. You're rated on the level of documentation. Um, and so with those pressures on a medical provider, you can understand why they would shortchange the diet and lifestyle conversations, especially when most providers think that people are not going to change their diet, they're not going to change their lifestyle. They just want the drug, they just want the surgery, they just want the procedure.
Right. Well, and nowhere in the evaluation did I hear you list as one of the things you are evaluated on, how much better are the patients getting? Which would seem to me the metric that everybody would be looking at, right?
Right.
And that doesn't even count anymore, which is unfortunate. So, yeah, you have
Right.
had some great experiences for going into a different direction with medicine. And you're not the only person who's told me about the constant typing. And when
Yep.
this all started, it was really the Affordable Care Act that I think started the constant data entry. I remember a physician friend of mine here in Columbus said that she was trying to take all the daytime and see patients and then type at night. And
Hmm.
with 3 children and a family to take care of and everything else, she goes, all they did was sit at the table and type at night while family life was going on someplace
Right.
else in the house. So she ended up doing what you were doing. You end up typing all day and
Yep.
just doing the best you can to talk to people in between the data entry. That becomes the focus of what you're doing, right?
Right. And it's so impersonal when you as a provider are stuck behind a screen, you really can't connect with the patient. And as a
Mhm,
patient, it's definitely off-putting to have a provider have a screen between you and them and to
mhm.
be entering data um, the whole time into the computer. It's it's
Right.
it's another reason, honestly, for me to get out of the system. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for me to get out of the traditional system and follow this new system, which you're a trailblazer in, is that I don't want to have that relationship with
Mhm,
the patients or clients that I'm helping. I don't want to be stuck behind a computer screen. And the reality is too, if I said, okay, I'm not going to do any documentation, I'm going to really focus on, sitting there with the person and not typing anything down. Well, I do an 8 or 12 hour shift. I'm going to be spending 5, 6 hours then when
mhm.
I don't have the time, middle of the night trying to type up notes, trying to remember, what I did or saw, and that's difficult.
Well, and I think one thing I would say to the people watching this is that so often when people encounter a provider engaging in this activity, they blame it on the provider. Oh, I
Right.
went, I saw a doctor, a PA, whatever, and he didn't even make eye contact, and he was just sitting there typing. At most, I would imagine that most of your colleagues at the time, they didn't like it any better than you did, but we're faced with the same dilemma. I have X amount of time to get this done, and everything has to go by the wayside except following the rules. And so don't
Yeah.
blame the provider, really, because I think there are a lot of good people stuck in medicine that would like to get out for these reasons.
100% agree with you. And I get multiple emails, medical emails a day, and I also read, these doctor forums and whatnot, medical provider forums. People are burned out.
Mhm.
Medical providers are burned out. The systems, it's just not sustainable with all these providers being burned out. I cannot think off the top of my head a medical provider I know that is happy in the traditional system. They either dislike their job or they're neutral about it. And
Mhm.
don't you want to see a medical provider who's like happy, who
Right.
actually enjoys what they're doing? Um, it's discouraging to think you as someone going to see your medical provider, and this is one of the things I know from being on, behind the scenes, is that a lot of these providers are just really unhappy, or at the best just neutral, just trying to get through their day,
Mhm.
dealing with all these other pressures that they have on them from above, from their administrators, from whoever is running the practice or the business.
We're definitely due for a change. And
Yeah.
the COVID madness, it was terrible, but it was also good from the standpoint that
Yeah.
it spurred a lot of people to do something. It's like I can't live in this system anymore. So a whole lot of people
Right.
left, and I think that was good. But it also woke a lot of people up to how crazy the system was. It exposed a lot of things, and so from
Yeah.
that standpoint, maybe the world coming to an end in early 2020, we'll look back, or a future generation will look back and say, well, from what those people said, it was really awful, but maybe that's why things are better now.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
anyway, and I met a lot of people who I wouldn't know right now had it not been for that, including your
Right.
wife and you. That
Right.
probably was what brought us together.
Yes.
So, and I thought it was really interesting too, looking into vaccines the way that you did. How has that influenced how you and Liz are bringing up and taking care of your own children?
Yes. That has definitely strongly influenced how we are raising our children. And we definitely realize a lot of these diseases that we protect against with vaccines um, are not as dangerous as they're made out to be. Obviously, we always hear the worst case scenarios, but for example, chickenpox. I mean, that's a disease now that basically every kid gets vaccinated for, and the actual chance of a child dying from chickenpox is incredibly, incredibly low. And it goes for a number of the other diseases as well. So one of the biggest things, I think it's one of the things that Suzanne Humphreys does in her book, Dissolving Illusions, which is so great, is basically, for example, for measles, it shows the mortality of measles. And so it starts up here, the chart starts up here back in the 17 or 1800s, and it goes down, 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 down. You're like, this is great, this is great, this is great. It's going down, down, down. And then it's like, oh, where'd the vaccine come in? Well, it's all the way at the bottom. And
Mhm.
then it goes down a teeny bit more. And so a lot of these diseases we vaccinated against they were largely reduced by better sanitation, better hygiene, better medical practices, better nutrition,
Mhm.
and a lot of these. It's just interesting. We don't realize the actual history of how humanity lived in the 17 or 1800s or early 1900s. How dirty it was, how unsanitary it was, how unhealthy people were because of their diets and whatnot, and eating, uh, you know, contaminated food and whatnot. And so the information I've learned about vaccines has strongly influenced our health decisions for our children, and
Yeah.
I think has resulted in us making the best choices for our children. And at the end of the day, you talk about this, and I totally agree. Everyone has a risk tolerance. So when you talk to someone, you need to know what their risk tolerance is.
Mhm.
And so some people have a high risk tolerance, some people have a low risk tolerance. And part of what your education program through your institute helps people learn is to learn what the real risks, what the real benefits are, and then to help people determine what their risk tolerance is. There's nothing that's 100% guarantee a lot of the time, and so in medicine, one of the things that you do, one of the things that I do is help people weigh those benefits and risks. Okay, here's your risk tolerance, and here's the actual benefit. Here's the actual risk of this intervention, this medication, this
Mhm.
procedure. What's your risk tolerance? And then that person makes a decision. I'm
Right.
not making a decision for them. It's their own choice.
Well, and I think one of the problems with the system right now is the system wants to make the decision for people. So my goal
Yeah.
with the work that we're doing at Wellness Forum is to basically say parents are in charge of bringing up children. parents should get the information and make their decisions about what they're going to do with their children. And it's a very personal family decision. It's not the state in the state's interest. It's not the medical
Right.
system's decision to make. This country was founded on autonomy and personal choice and the right
Exactly.
to decide what's right for you. And we've taken a lot of that away in medicine for sure. I'm sure that you looked at a lot of programs before you chose ours. You decided to become a certified health educator. What made you decide that this was the program for you?
That is a great question. And I was actually introduced to Wellness Forum Health through my mother in law, who knew about you. And I think that what I most liked about your program was the focus on root cause, focus on diet and lifestyle intervention, focus on treating healthcare as a service and treating also the person as someone who needs to be responsible for their own health. I
Mhm.
think that's really important, that we all accept responsibility for our own health. I choose to do things that benefit my health, and I actively choose not to do things that'll harm me.
Mhm.
Even if I, want to do those things, I don't do them because I want to maintain my health. So, what other programs did I look into? I looked into there's another organization, lifestyle program through I think it's the American Academy of Lifestyle Medicine, which I do get their emails and look at their program. It didn't look as comprehensive to me when I looked into it, and it didn't look as thorough. I believe, we're still relying on a lot of traditional medical approaches to disease.
Mhm.
I also looked into functional medicine, which we've talked a lot about, and I was a little bit discouraged by some of those programs. Just a lot of testing, a lot of supplementation. I agree with you. I mean, you got to make this easy for people, and if you start telling people they've got to do 25 tests and take 30 supplements a day, I mean, I know
Mhm.
that's probably an exaggeration for some of it, but okay, let's reduce it down to, you got to do these 5 or 10 tests, and then you got to take these 5 or 10 supplements, and you got to do these 5 things a day. I mean, it just becomes unmanageable for people.
Mhm.
And is that really how we're created? That we need all these things to actually function and be well? I don't think we were created to have to need a bunch of supplements and a bunch of tests to be healthy.
Right. Well, to a certain extent, a couple things in response to what you said. To a certain extent, many other modalities and systems carry with them the same faults of the medical system. In other words, if
Hmm.
we're testing and treating too much over here, using a different method to test and treat too much over here is not necessarily a step in the right direction, right?
Hmm.
The complicated nature of it, I always tell people that there's only so many compliance genes each person has, and
Right.
we need to spend them on the right things, right? So you can't pay attention to everything. And a lot of people are trying to do this the way that you are. You're trying to live a healthy life in a family environment with busy, you're working, you've got children. And so the incessant every minute you got to eat a Brazil nut at 1 o'clock, and you got, all those rules, you start compounding that with a family, it becomes very difficult to follow. And then the other
Exactly.
thing is reductionism. A lot of diet and lifestyle advice is given in isolation without considering that if you're in what we refer to as the medical mill while you're eating well, you'll be marginally better off as opposed to informed decision making about all of this medical care over here and combining that with a health promoting diet and lifestyle.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well said. One thing that's great about the program that I did with you to become a certified health educator, you introduced your students to a lot of different texts that I
Mhm.
had never been exposed to. The China study and Whole, by Dr. Colin Campbell. These were never talked about in PA school. Dr. Peter Bregan,
Mhm.
talking about psychiatric illness and the harm of a lot of psychiatric medication. I mean, never
Mhm.
introduced. I was trained how to prescribe all this medication. I came to my own conclusion, especially the dangers of SSRIs after I did my own research on that, and then was further confirmed in my understanding of the danger of SSRIs from Dr. Bregan, especially the approach to cancer. You introduced us to Dr. Thomas Seyfried,
Mhm.
again, someone I was never introduced to before, never heard of before, who really has a compelling case. You assigned and I read his entire textbook, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. He gives a very compelling and convincing, evidence-based, research-based, science-based argument that cancer is a metabolic disease resulting from mitochondrial dysfunction. It's the hallmark of all cancers is this mitochondrial dysfunction, and hundreds of different citations and research studies done, providing as much proof as possible of this connection of cancer and metabolic disease and mitochondrial dysfunction. And so And I had been a PA for 10 years, over 10 years by the time I started your program, and I hadn't heard of any of this. But, this is stuff that I hadn't even come across, unfortunately. But you have done 30 years of extensive research on the best resources and the best texts and the best specialists and the best providers to really collate all this information and then present it to your students, which I was super glad and to learn about. And then, I can now go out and tell other people about this.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and thank you for that. And I think one of the reasons why these texts are not used either in primary education or continuing education for conventional providers is because they really would take people in a different direction than medicine is willing to go at this point in time. To have a discussion,
Yeah.
if you start to look at cancer as a metabolic disease, for example, and almost all cancers, a couple exceptions, but almost all of
Yeah.
them share the same metabolic or mitochondrial dysfunction. All of a sudden, we don't need a different drug for each type of cancer. And that's one huge profit model that goes away. And there's a profit incentive involved.
Hmm.
And none of that can be discussed with a cancer patient, given the amount of time that the average oncologist can spend with a cancer patient. So
Right.
so if medicine tried to go in this direction, it would upend itself in a very chaotic I would collapse, I think, because it really
Yeah.
couldn't, the system can't withstand this type of information and where it leads both providers and patients. So
Hmm.
I think we might just have to let the existing system collapse and go over here and do something different and hope we can just attract more and more people to come over to the land of evidence and where medicine becomes fun again and
Right.
patients get well. And the metric is how much better are you getting? Not did I type all my stuff on time and and
Right.
everybody said I was swell, right? It's how much better are the people getting?
Right.
So,
And the key is being
mhm,
informed, being truly informed. And that takes more than a 15-minute appointment.
yeah,
And also taking responsibility for your health. I know I said that, but I want to reiterate that too. Um, you have to take responsibility for your health. You can't make a lot of bad health decisions and then just farm your care out to a doctor who's going to prescribe you medications or procedures or surgery. You have to do
right,
the hard work. It's actually honestly, it becomes easy after a while because, you develop a habit and then it's actually easy, but you've got to do that work and you got to be responsible for your health.
yeah, and know what you're doing and why you're doing it, not just following directions. I always get really prickly with people when they say, "Well, I followed this person and then I followed that person." Who do you
Right.
follow, Pam? I tell them I don't follow anybody. I follow evidence, and that brings me to another question. Everybody says that the course that's the hardest is research, the
Hmm.
research course you have to take. One graduate said, "I had PTSD after that class." But I remember one of the things that came up as a result of that class, and it manifested itself in a presentation that you made. There's a particular journal that you read,
Hmm.
and I think you've created some videos about your reading some articles and then commenting on what those articles say. And I think people are pretty shocked to find out still that some of the articles in what are respected journals often are lacking. They're not such great evidence, or the conclusions are not arrived at using good methodology. So
Yes.
comment on that, because I think you have the same view of medical journals I do, which is proceed with caution. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that.
For sure. So I've read various medical journals over the years, but I currently read and subscribe to the American Academy of Family Physicians journal. And this is the most widely read, or one of the most widely read. The last I heard, they were the most widely read journal that family physicians read. So the reason I read this is both for my own continuing education, and also from the other perspective. This is also I also want to know what the leading family physicians in the country are talking about, researching and doing and whatnot. And so, I read some of these articles. Some of them make sense. Some of them really don't make sense. Um, and it's concerning because patients, clients, they need to know that this is what your provider is reading, most likely the American Family Physician, and they basically, they cover various diseases and illnesses, common things that you would see in primary care practice.
Yeah.
So everything from acne to annual exams, which we could talk. That's a whole nother conversation. But and different types of fractures, things like that. Sort of the common stuff. High blood pressure, obviously management, things like that. And so I had and I'm going to be creating these videos, basically respectfully responding to some of these articles. So unfortunately, the American Family Physician has gone down, with a lot of these articles, the whole gender ideology path that we see um, in culture, not being super clear about man and woman.
Mhm.
And we also see articles like one I presented in our research and writing class, basically about infants with incidental hypothermia, meaning basically a child was brought into a medical office for some reason, an infant, and they had a low temperature, slightly low, not cold and blue, but, a slightly low temperature reading. Now, obviously, if the child was sick, ill appearing, there was an issue going on, um, then that's actually a different conversation if they have an abnormal temperature. But this was for general exam checkups. The child comes in, has an incidental low temperature, and so basically the standard of care is for infants with incidental low temperature readings. It's this whole diagnostic workup of going to the emergency room, having blood cultures, urine cultures, lumbar puncture. I mean, this is on a infant, a very, very young child, who doesn't know what's going on, is probably taken for a significant amount of time from their most secure comfort, their mother, poked and prodded, exposed to the risks of being in a hospital, admitted to a hospital. And in this research study that was done of, I think it was around 200 plus infants with low temperature, um, not one serious like bacterial infection was found to cause the low temperature. It was just, oops, there was a low temperature, and we have just traumatized your child. We have traumatized the parents. We have
Mhm.
caused huge medical bills and put the child at incredible risk. Um, all for nothing, for no reason.
Right.
And so, why are we doing that? I kind of got angry, honestly, reading it. And I have young children, and know what it's like to be a father. And the thought of my child going through that for an incidental finding, and the reason too is, we have such reverence, for better or worse, for our medical providers. A lot of times, especially if you don't know anything, say you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're a landscaper, and you bring your child in, and the doctor tells you, "Hey, this child has a low temperature, and it could be something really serious, and you need to go to the hospital." You're terrified, you're freaked out, and
Yeah.
then to find out that it was nothing, nothing, and no other child with this incidental low temperature has really ever had a problem. That's just one example of many examples I could give of things I would like to respond to, because this people need to know about this. People need to know what the standard of care is, how providers are motivated. Obviously, there's a huge legal liability risk. People are, I think, scared of malpractice, obviously, and so they over test, over treat um, to mitigate that risk.
Right. Well, and going to the informed model, if parents knew, before we take your child to the hospital, you have a choice here. Could be something, but this study showed it 0 out of
Right.
200 children, and then parents could decide. But I think that's typical. There's a lot of cover your rear end in medicine right now, which is unfortunate because it leads to excess care. It leads to distrust of the system. I don't like the fact that I distrust the system. That's really not good. I'd like
Yeah.
to be able to trust the system, but you hear this kind of stuff, and I hear it every day, and you do too. And your antenna go up, every time you
Right.
hear it. Well, tell
Right.
us about your new practice. You're getting ready to open a whole new chapter in your life and the way you practice and what you're going to be doing. So tell everybody what you're going to be doing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So I've been a physician assistant 12 years. And so I've worked in all these different fields, had this whole experience of going through the COVID madness, losing my job because I wouldn't take the vaccine, finding a way to continue to work in medicine, the one loophole, which allowed me to do basically disability exams, disability evaluations. And, here we are in 2025, last year, 2024, figuring out what am I going to do? And so I've basically now stepped away from traditional medical practice and started a company called Evidence to Healing LLC, where I work with clients, showing them the evidence that they are not likely shown. And this evidence can basically um, does show that people can reverse chronic disease through different interventions than drugs or surgery. And so again, this is something that takes more than a 15-minute visit, more than even a 1 hour visit. This is something that takes some time for people to understand, but basically working with people as clients and showing them the evidence. I've got a year of experience with you learning where to find this evidence, how to evaluate this evidence, um, how to present this evidence, and then guiding people through the evidence, helping them make their own decision about what they should do about their medical conditions. Because there is significant evidence out there that people can have the possibility of reversing chronic disease through different interventions than what is offered at their primary care provider's office or specialist office.
Right. And we're super excited you're choosing to affiliate with us. So we're
Yeah,
going to keep working together. We always like when graduates do that. Of course, it's not a requirement, but we offer a lot of resources that make it easier to do this than if you have to recreate the whole thing from scratch yourself. So we're really happy to welcome you to the Wellness Forum family and
thank you.
look forward to having you do some teaching and introducing you
That'd be
to our
great.
people in a number of different ways. So,
And when clients do partner with me, part of their membership with me will actually include the basic level Wellness Forum Health membership. And that's something I decided on my own that I wanted to include as a service because there's a lot of background that needs to go into this because this is a transformation that people need to make where they are going to be doing some of the research themselves and looking at the evidence themselves to make the best decision for themselves.
mhm.
Um, and so Wellness Forum Health, one of the things that I think is so great is that you offer a 101 and 201 course where you have these courses which teach the basic of diet and lifestyle medicine, which is super helpful because for me to explain that to everyone that I see would take 10 visits. And,
Mhm.
I have to be judicious with my time and also the client's time too. This is something they can do on their own and also live in person. And then also, Pam, you've developed a excellent library, a health briefs library, which is all backed up by references and evidence. And I really want my clients to have access to that library of information where you have hundreds of topics with the exact number, but I assume thousands of articles. I haven't counted each one, but I know just an incredible amount of articles about all sorts of topics, everything from dairy to cancer to rheumatoid arthritis to diabetes, all kind of a collated, collected information that I want my clients to have access to. So that's the benefit that they'll also get working with me is that they'll have access to Wellness Forum Health resources as they begin this path to improvement.
Yeah, well, I developed all that stuff because I realized that I couldn't do what I do without those resources. And now I'm just so glad other people can use them too. Because I really think the key to medicine is getting good practitioners out of the system and getting consumers informed so that they make better choices. And I've always said, people seem to be able to figure out how to do complicated things they don't know much about
Hmm.
in other areas of life. Like I'm a mechanical idiot, but I buy cars and I don't
Hmm.
know much about real estate, but I'm living in a house, right? So we all feel kind of empowered to figure that out. And then people walk into a doctor's office and they go, throw up their hands. I don't know what to do. We have to change that thinking. And that comes through education. So, you know,
Totally.
thank
And
you
I think
for reinforcing that that is the right thing to do.
totally. And because traditional medical providers are educated largely in just drugs and surgery, you have to ask what happens. I mean, I saw people not get better. And so what happens when drugs or surgery don't work?
Mhm.
There are other ways. There is other evidence out there that people just aren't aware of. What happens if you don't want to use drugs or surgery? What if you go to your traditional medical provider and they say, "Yep, I'm going to give you this drug, or you can have this procedure, but that's what I have to offer. This is the service I offer. It's drugs or surgery, or it's just surgery, or it's just drugs, or
Or
I
we
can
can't do anything. Just go
right.
home and we have no idea.
What are you supposed to do? Just give up? No, you got to keep, advocating for yourself. You got to keep trying to help yourself and get better. And so not many providers are educated as in depth as the graduates of your program are. And so that's the value that you bring, that I bring, that other graduates of yours can bring is after doing this and not only having experience of seeing thousands of clients and thousands of patients, both of us, doing a year in-depth study of where to find the information, what's the information, how to research, how to evaluate it. What's the number what's the NNT, the number needed to treat? I mean, that's a pretty
Mhm.
important number. Have you ever heard a patient or a client talk about, that or know about that? No, never,
Right.
Um, And
Well,
so
we're looking forward to a great collaboration with you. Thank you so
wonderful.
much. And for those of you who are watching, you're going to hear more from Dan for sure.
Thanks.
And so happy to have had you as a student. You were a great student, by the way.
Thank you,
Almost
Pam.
all,
Thank you.
I have to say, almost all the people who enroll in this program are great because they're super smart. That's I love working with smart people, and there are people, many of them like you, who've seen the bad side of medicine and they want it to be better, and they know that this is the pathway to make it better. So thank you. Welcome aboard. Our folks will look forward to hearing more from you later. So thank you so much for watching, and thanks
Thank
for
you,
being
Pam.
with me.
Thank you so much, Pam.
I hope you enjoyed that interview and learned a lot from our discussion. Just a couple last things. If you like what you heard from Dan Moyer, and maybe you'd like to be like him when you grow up, be that type of health professional, affiliate with us, like how he is affiliating with us. I'm doing a free workshop, practice building tips, including how you can help cancer patients for health professionals only. It's December 6th, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time via Zoom. We'll record it, of course. The workshop is for anyone who's thinking of starting a health-related business, expanding one, learning how to do better with the people you're working with. We'll discuss how to identify and attract your target market, suggestions for services to offer, and proven marketing ideas. And then we will have part of the session will be dedicated to how to help cancer patients who are looking for solutions outside of, but in association with a conventional treatment. All conventional treatment isn't bad. Some of it's very necessary. It's the isolated use of it without adjuvants that sometimes becomes the problem. So to be clear, this is for health professionals. There are people who are serious about becoming health professionals, maybe training with us. It's not for cancer patients. We have other programs for cancer patients. Okay, so and then remember, one of the Black Friday offers is for people who are looking to do some health professional training. So don't forget that, and feel free to send me an email. Again, pampopper@msn.com. Last but not least, it's holiday time, and it's time to start shipping holiday gifts. And you can ship any of the products that we make or offer, and books, all kinds of things. We can help you complete a shopping list and ship things all over the country for you. And our fruit and nut crunch bars make great holiday gifts. We're putting Christmas labels on them, and we will include a Hanukkah or Christmas card in the box if you would like. And we can ship them any place in the United States. So it's time to order them, because to get them to where you want them shipped on time sooner is always better than later, as you know. So don't forget the Black Friday sales. It's Thanksgiving week, so I hope you have a great one. Don't eat anything I wouldn't eat. And I'll be back to you in a couple of weeks with the next Pam Popper show. Thanks for watching.